TR Willie here, and welcome to my latest edition of TR's Mod Shop. I'm beginning a new series today where I'm going to be going over the different guitars in my collection. I was going to update videos on previous mods that I had done, and I got to looking around and realizing that the majority of my guitars have really unique modifications that I've done over the years. And I thought it might be neat to go through them and showcase them and maybe give folks ideas of modifications they can do on their own guitars. And I figured it would be smartest to begin with my very first Strat, the oldest guitar that's in my collection that I've had the longest. And it's this one, and I refer to it as Sybil. That was actually a name given by my bandmates years ago because when it was the only electric that I owned, I was constantly changing things on it, and my friend said that the guitar had a multi-personality disorder, so they named the guitar Sybil. It's a 1989 Fender American Standard. I bought it in February of 1990. It was originally Olympic white, if you can believe it. I have the original body and original neck still with it, and some of the hardware is still original, but much of the rest of the guitar has been heavily modified and changed. One thing about the guitars in my collection, many of them are influenced off my musical influences. They're sort of, in a way, they're not necessarily pure signature or copies of artist guitars, but they're artists that have inspired me. They're kind of influenced off those artists. And over the years, this guitar went through a lot of different looks and changes. It was, for the longest time, it was just bare wood, so it almost had like a Stevie Ray Vaughan or Nuno Bettencourt kind of look to it. But then a little over a year ago, I went ahead and painted it this sort of metallic blue. It's actually a rattle can, spray can, and it actually turned out pretty nice. And really, the look I was going for is very influenced off of Steve Morse. Steve Morse is a big influence of mine, one of my favorite guitarists. I've been into him for over 30 years now. So this guitar is very, very heavily influenced off his main guitar, which is actually an Ernie Ball Music Man. So what I did several years ago was I installed several of the Steve Morse DiMarzio pickups, and I have videos from several years ago where I demoed those pickups. I have the Steve Morse bridge and the Steve Morse neck versions. I've also rewired the guitar so that it has only a volume and a tone, and I actually moved them down sort of in between where the typical knobs would be on a Strat, so there's a little more room for my hand and I'm not bumping the knobs as much. I also have, and this is a mod that I do on all of my guitars, is I have some rubber washers underneath to stabilize the knobs. When I play, a lot of times, especially live, my hands move quite a bit, and a lot of times I'll hit the knobs, and I've had issues in the past where, you know, I've knocked down the volume and it changes the sound. I've even had that in recordings, and it just ruined the take because it actually changed the sound of the guitar, and I didn't even realize I had done it, and trying to figure out why my guitar didn't sound as loud and as powerful, and you know, I had bumped the volume knob. So I've started installing these rubber washers, which I can still turn them very easily, but I'm not going to bump them out of position. Standard 5-way switch, unlike the Steve Morse has several different switches on his main guitar. This is a typical 5-way switch where it will go the bridge and middle and neck, and then the neck. And in the middle position, I actually have a DiMarzio HS2. I've had this pickup. Actually, this pickup has, for years, was with this guitar in the bridge position. I have it wired single coil like Eric Johnson had in his #1 guitar back in the 80s and 90s. And it actually has a very kind of a vintage hot sound, very powerful for a single coil, but still very stratty. And it gives a real neat distinction between the other pickups, which are very thick, very warm, especially in the in-between, in the 2 and the 4 positions. You can get a very very Strat, what they call the quack sound, even though you're pairing it with a humbucker. The bridge is the original 2-point American Standard, but I have replaced it with Callahan saddles, which I find to be a little brighter sounding than the original block saddles were. I did have to replace the tremolo block because I had stripped out and broken the whammy bar. Actually, I went through many whammy bars early in the day. I used to snap them about every couple months. And so eventually that original block became completely stripped out. So about 15 years ago, I was able to get a full-size stainless steel block, and I'll show you that in a minute. And also this pickguard it was custom made. The Steve Morse models, his original blue one actually has 4 pickups instead of 3. Middle pickup is actually moved closer to the bridge, which gives it a little bit of a brighter sound than if it was in the typical position. And then Steve Morse actually has a 4th pickup, another single coil in a kind of slant diagonal, which I don't have. His Y2K model Ernie Balls have this setup where it's just the 3 pickups without that 4th. So it's kind of more aligned with those. One thing I get asked a lot, this is a wax seal. It's originally red underneath there, but when I painted over it, I couldn't tape it off and make it look right, so I just painted over it. But I often get people asking me what that is. It's just a wax seal with my initial and my last name, W. And then going over to the back of the guitar, I do have the saddle, or the bridge blocked, so that it is completely, you can't use the tremolo on this at all. I have one of the guitar blocked like this. It's a very common, on the Eric Clapton signature, he has his guitars blocked like this, and that just it adds an extra little bit of sustain and brilliance to the sound, almost like a stop tail guitar would be. Its original neck, I featured, this neck was on originally the black guitar, the 87 influence guitar I had on a previous video. It's a very thin neck for a Strat. It's not my thinnest, but it's very close. I've had issues with it being so thin because I have very large hands, and so they can cramp after a while. But I was kind of interested in getting it back to its original combination of the neck and the body. So I have enough other guitars that I don't play this guitar so much that I start having hand problems. So that's it for Sybil. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and demo it now. And I'm going through a pair of Fender Mustang version 1s, I believe. They're my home practice rig. I run them in stereo, and I've got several pedals I'm running through, a couple of delays, and I'll kind of run through the sounds without effects first, and then I'll throw on some effects so you can hear it with some delay and distortion. So hope you guys get something out of it, and here's what Sybil sounds like.